Hello, this is Bonnie Burkert, and you're watching Truth Be Told Transformation, sharing tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One thing that's true for me is that I love turning to the natural world to create change. It could be having a swim and how that really cools me down and kind of resets me. It could be listening to the wind as a meditation, as a place to maybe hear some answers. Certainly, the fire of the sun creates a lot of respect about, how intense it is and how powerful it can be. And that leaves us with earth as we go through all the different elements. And when I saw that there's a book called Divine Dirt, I had to learn from this author, this woman, please tell us the magical elements of our earth, and specifically, why dirt? Welcome, Charity L. Bedell. Let us know a little bit more about your new Llewellyn book, Divine Dirt.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
I've been a witch my whole life, and one of the things that my parents always encouraged me to do was be outside and play in the dirt and play in nature. And that continued through my whole childhood. And then in my early teens, I found the practice of witchcraft and magic, and how that venerated and honored and worshiped the earth. So over the years, I would practice magic, and I noticed that while they would talk about earth, the element of earth, they never actually really talked about working with earth, meaning the dirt beneath our feet.
Right.
The actual physical planet. And that's where this book came in. Because I had heard some folk traditions, like I had learned in conjure work, how different areas had different spiritual and magical energies. And I thought, well, why isn't that being used in witchcraft? Witchcraft is a religion that honors the earth. I think it's time that someone taught people how to do this. So...
Fantastic. No, it's really true. And I've got so many images coming up as you talk about the use of earth. Like, for example, I believe it was the movie Gladiator. Did you ever see that with Russell Crowe? And there was a time that he would pick up the soil from his home farm, and there would be images of him holding the soil, and there was this reverence for it. And so when you talk about this, it's like, wow, what a cool thing to think about. And yet it isn't specifically, when you think of magical spells, like, for example, earth is often represented by salt, correct?
Yes.
So, but I don't know, the earth beneath our feet, something even more different, and it's different. So I think it's really, you've struck a chord on this one, I feel.
Well, because, I'm going to start with the example of the home. One of the reasons why that imagery works so powerful is that the dirt on that farm that he had with his family,
yeah,
holds the energy of everyone that lives on that farm. And also holds the spirit of that house. And we know that back in those Roman days, every house had its own house god and spirit that was honored. So that energy would also be in the dirt as well as on their altar. So anytime he touched that dirt, he could feel that connection, or just thinking about running his hands through the dirt, the memory of that dirt holds the memory of everyone there. So when you're working with dirt, you're working with the energy of everything there, the energy of the place, the spirit of the place, the people, And I mean, working with the dirt from your own home is a great way to have to work protection and healing magic. I mean, the dirt from your home can work as a personal effect. Since it has the energy of everyone in your home, you can use it in a spell to target the entire household rather than trying to get a personal effect from every single person in the house.
Oh, I see. That's an interesting way of doing that. So you're giving that as an example of spell work. And I know with spells, we get the different elements, right? So we might have a candle. We talked about salt representing earth. So you mentioned a little bit, why don't you talk to us a little bit about working with the element of earth, right? So we know that fire has certain properties. We mentioned water, right? We mentioned air. So in that case, it would be represented perhaps as incense, correct? Right? When we're talking.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah. So let's take a look and see. So we can kind of, we're not talking about those other elements, though. We're talking about earth. You mentioned protection. Tell us some other things that we would use the element of earth for.
Well, earth is a really interesting element in that while it does have some of its own innate magical and spiritual properties like foundation and strength, which can be translated into protection magic and healing work. Dirt also absorbs energy and can neutralize energy. So you can have the neutralization of energy being used in cleansing spells and cleansing work. And that's why it's when you sweep up the dirt from cleaning your home, it's important that you don't empty that dirt in the trash in your home. You empty it outside your home because you're physically sweeping it up. And if you put it back in the trash in your home, then you're just keeping the energy and the force in your home. Whereas when you put it outside on the ground outside, the earth outside will neutralize that energy, and then neutralized energy will be sent back into the earth to be used in however the way the earth itself feels the need to be used. That's
very good. Okay, I like this. What an interesting concept, by the way. Thank you for the reminder, because I'm sure not all of us handle our cleaning that way. So it's a very, very good reminder. It's like if you're in on cleaning, let's go ahead and take it to that next step and really get it out of your house.
I mean, that's why I'm going to talk about air for a moment here. Okay. That's why if you're using a fumigation or smoke and incense to clean your house, if you don't have a window open, you don't have a way for the air to go out.
To take it out.
It's still in the house. So you got to have a window open so that air can get pushed out and leave. And then once you've cleansed everything, then you can close the window and everything will be able to be back to cleansed, and then you can replace it with smoke of a different type to fill the energetic area with what you want.
Very nice. Okay. Thank you. Tools for transformation right there. I like that. I like that suggestion very much. So what is your experience using dirt, the earth, from different places? So for example, where are you located?
Right now, I am located in Augusta, Maine. I've lived in a bunch of different areas in Maine, so...
Pretty. Well, your soil is very different than what we've got here in California. Your soil is much darker. And I'd say, not to take away from our entire state of California, but in Southern California, it's quite dry. I know where I live, it's almost clay-like. I'm not going to say it's red, but there's certain parts of the country where it is red in the world. So tell me your different experience with these different types. I mean, we're getting really specific, but I feel that there's got to be some different energy involved.
There is. Even in the state of Maine, the energy in the dirt along the coast is different than the energy of the forest in the center and of central Maine, which is also different than the energy of the mountains in central and western Maine.
Right.
If you're in an area that has a desert, that area is going to have different energy in the desert than it will in areas outside of the desert. Like if you have desert in one area and a river in another, the area with the river is going to have a much more different energetic feel. It will be closer to the feel of water energy than it will be closer to the feel of the dirt energy from the desert.
We're getting very specific with the possibilities here, Charity, for sure.
And it's not just the dirt of natural locations. It's even dirt from places like banks and hospitals or doctor's offices, schools, libraries, airports, bus terminals, post offices. Anywhere that there are people track, there's going to be dirt. Anywhere people walk, there's going to be dirt. We carry it with us everywhere. It is everywhere. And depending on where you are and what happens there, that affects the type of the energy that the dirt has. Like energy from a bank would obviously be good in financial works because banks are for money. But someplace like a mall, it might be a little more abstract because there's a lot of different things that happen at malls. You've got people that go there for dates. You've got socialization. You've got commerce. You've got it's like, so you've got so many different things that you can actually use dirt from the same place, from one place, in multiple different workings, depending on where you got it and why you need it.
Okay. Okay, if I wanted dirt from a bank, how would one go about? I mean, what are we talking about? Having a little broom with us and grabbing some? I mean, are we talking literal? Are we talking the dirt inside? Are we talking the dirt of the foundation?
That's there are a couple ways you can go about this. One way is just sweeping up with your hands any physical dirt on the floor of the bank while you're going about your business. Like one way to go about that is act like you dropped a coin or your shoe or laces need to be retied. So you bend over and you do that task, but while you're doing that task, in a small baggie, you scoop up and put the dirt in the baggie.
All right.
Or if you don't have a baggie, I've had a tissue before. And so I scooped the dirt up in the tissue. I kept that tissue folded up tightly. And then when I got home, I put the dirt from the tissue in a baggie and I set that aside for other work.
Well, this is a very, very unique practice here. I'm intrigued. And what has your experience been? If you have one that you care to share specifically, getting something like this from a bank, or if you want to give another example, if you care to share, I'm intrigued.
I've used dirt from a bank to gather for works when I was doing events. And what I did was I sprinkled a little bit of that dirt and combined it with a little bit of fast cash powder or attract money powder. And then I took the combination of the two and I sprinkled a little bit at the bottom of my cash box, visualizing sales coming in and being productive. And every time I did it, it worked.
All right.
But one thing I do is that before you start going out and gathering and harvesting dirt from any location, when we're talking about the essence of a place, we're talking about the spirits of a place. So you have to honor the spirits of the place. Ideally, you take time getting to know the spiritual and energetic forces of a place, but that's not always possible. Sometimes we need the stuff quickly because we're in a situation where, like, if you needed to do a healing spell really quick, and like for someone that was in the hospital, gather some hospital dirt while you're there, do your work when you get home, and when you go back to the hospital, you can thank the spirit. But the spirits and energy needs to be honored because you're working with their force, their life essence when you work with the dirt. And I think a lot of people forget that in magic is that the energy that we call upon when we work spells or meditations or do energy transfer, that energy is coming from the spirit. Spirit doesn't have to give us that energy. Spirit can tell us, no, I don't want to work with you, and keep that energy for itself. I have had spells fail and healing works fail because I did not honor the spirits of the herbs or these crystals or whatever materials I was working with. And they didn't want me to work with me since I didn't honor them. So no matter what I tried, I couldn't get the energy to do the spell work. Or if it did work, it worked as minimally as possible with the least amount of effort possible. So you got to at least connect to the spirit. You don't have to have an altar to all the spirits. You don't have to give fancy prayers or something. Just pour a little water on the ground when you gather the dirt.
Okay.
And thank them.
Yeah, because
you can do for incense and more formal and elaborate offerings if you want, but all you really need is a little bit of water and your heartfelt intention to tell the spirit, thank you for helping me. Thank you for working with me. Thank you for letting me have this dirt. This is for you. Other options are literally paying coins, placing coins on the ground. That's especially important with some traditions when it comes to places like graveyard dirt. That's a very intense topic. That's in an own interview entirely.
Give us a little hint, though. Why do people gather graveyard dirt?
2 reasons. Work with your ancestors and the dead, and simply to call upon the power of the dead.
Okay.
But like I said, there's a lot of intricacies with graveyard dirt that I could easily go on for an hour or more. And I may have been hinted at that I should actually work on a book writing of that. So we'll see what happens in the future.
All right. Well, maybe we won't ask too many questions about that in anticipation of your next release. I like that. I think it's intriguing, and you're right. It does kind of take us down a path of different possibilities, and I kind of want to keep you in, more specifically. Well, we're talking about location. Right? So we're talking about some of the different locations, and I'm imagining like, wow, what if I was in some a sacred site, like perhaps the Pyramid of Giza? I mean, what a cool idea to try to take some of the dirt that goes through there.
So in that case, you're right, that would be a very powerful location to get dirt from, because that would have the energy of the desert, as well as all of the sacred energy of that location. So you would have the energy of the dead, the energy of the gods and spirits of the dead, the energy of also all the tourists that visit Giza. So.
Well, I did want to ask you about that. I mean, because you mentioned, I don't know that you'd be using an example of the mall, but say the bank, okay? Right? And people are doing money transactions, but sometimes not always in a happy way. So how do you deal with the fact that some of that traffic may not be totally high vibe?
That's where the thanks and offerings come in, because you're telling them why you want it for your work and what you're going to do with it. And you're thinking about your intent for the work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's a very unique practice again, if I may repeat myself in saying that. So let's take us back outside again, though. One of the chapters in your book talks about the animal spirits. So if you were to encounter an animal track, and how one could work with that space that still has a certain resonance of an animal walking through. I mean, tell us more about your experience with that and your thoughts, and anything to sort of further enlighten people on the possibilities around that.
That work I really like, because it actually takes me back to being a small child and taking hikes in the woods, where my father would point out different animal tracks and how to identify them. And every time I looked at the animal track, I could feel, like, for example, I could feel the grace of the deer. The deer are very graceful. They've got beauty, they've got elegance. And I could feel that power. Then when I've also saw some bobcat or cougar tracks, he wasn't sure which one, because the two look very similar and can be similar in size. I felt all that feline energy, and so your feet carry your essence wherever you go. So it makes sense that the tracks laid by an animal, or even the tracks you lay yourself, will carry your essence for that animal's essence. But rather just something that's a little more practical that people can do in their own home. Because a lot of people have house gardens and house plants. You can work with the dirt of your house plant in powerful magic. The dirt in your house plant will have the energy of that plant. So if you're growing specific herbs, like if you have a small kitchen garden growing basil and thyme and oregano, it'll have that energy. It'll have the energy and the essence of all those spirits.
What do you mean? I have to stop you there. So there's different spirit of each plant? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Like, so knowing...
The energy of the plant. So if you gathered the dirt around where the basil was, that would have the energy of the basil. Where the thyme grew, there would be energy of thyme.
What's the energy of thyme, just for an example? Can you tell us? Oh, just double checking. I mean, basil. I mean, it's so interesting to look at the different. I mean, again, this is next level magical study as we contemplate. I mean, this is all folk magic, really, as we look at how these herbs have come up through the ages and the different energies and properties that we've assigned to them.
Yeah, thyme is something that's good for cleansing. But the reason why I also put those herbs together is that 3 of them are all good for all cleansing and protection.
Okay.
So not only would you have the energy of each of those herbs, but after the herbs were gone, you could use that dirt, the soil from where you grew the herbs, in magic to cleanse and protect your home.
Bravo. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And we're working so holistically here, Charity. That's what's cool about this.
That's why I wanted to talk about those plants that you grow. And it's the same thing outside. You can, while you're harvesting, let's say you wanted to go work with dandelions. If you're harvesting dandelion root, there's going to be a lot of dirt that comes off that root. Keep that dirt. Set that dirt aside. When you're out of the root, you can use the dirt as a substitute for the dandelion root.
Right.
Because it has that energy.
Have you ever tried to include dirt in an incense? Like, could one burn it?
In theory, you can. Ideally, though, dirt has more traditionally been used in magical and spiritual oils.
Yep.
Because dirt doesn't always burn, and dirt is also something you use to put out fires. So
that's true.
But you can put it in oils, and the oil will absorb the energy from that dirt. That's why traditionally magical oils didn't necessarily smell good. They smelled like dirt. They smelled of the earth because they had the dirt from roots and herbs. They had the dirt from locations. They used everything around them. And so, I mean, dirt is everywhere. And that was one of the things I really wanted people to get to think about with this book, was how dirt is everywhere. It's often said that skilled magicians can work magic using nothing but their body and the dirt under their feet. Now people might have an idea of why I agree when I say that is possible. You just gotta know about the dirt.
Grounding, right?
Yeah, and grounding's that's part of why dirt is good in being used for neutralization. When you use dirt to ground, it takes that energy and it takes it from what you don't want and removes it from you and sets it at a neutral state where it can be used for basically anything that nature wants. It no longer has specific programming. It's just plain energy.
Well, and it's also, I mean, when you think about it, indigenous tribes using dirt, soil, mixed with pigments to get color. But right, that's what war paint was, correct? I mean, people would, that was part of, I'm not going to say anointing, but it was definitely part of probably a protection ritual, certainly.
Partially protection, probably also partially calling the specific deities and spirits of that land to aid them in the battles.
Yeah.
And what was coming, because
Power. Mm-hmm.
It has power.
Yeah. Cool. That's cool. This is, again, very unique. Tell us some other aspects of the book that I haven't touched on yet that you want to share. I know you talk about conjuring, which is a favorite word of mine. You want to talk a little bit about that, for example?
In my book, when I refer to conjure, I'm referring to what a lot of other people also call hoodoo. And what it is that you're conjuring a change in your life. You're bringing a change into your life through the use of that folk magic. And that you're doing that through working with the spirit, working with the root, and working with the forces all around you. So conjure, for me, there's conjure, the folk magic practice, and then there's the practice of conjuring spirits. And the only thing the two have in common is the ability to manifest something. When you're conjuring spirits, you're trying to manifest a spiritual presence. And when you're working conjure work, you're trying to manifest a change in your life.
How would you say conjure work is different than the spellcraft as a Wiccan?
It's completely all about the approach. Conjure relies more on the belief of the Christian God, and that he put the spirits in everything, and that the ability to work magic comes from him as a gift. Whereas as a Wiccan witch and witchcraft, it's just, we were given the gift by the universe, but it's the spiritual. It's a different approach. They're calling on God directly to manifest the change, whereas you're calling more on yourself as a witch. You're calling more on the forces around you rather than asking a specific higher deity power.
Cool. Thank you. That's very helpful. I appreciate that distinction. It's interesting. It's interesting to see the overlap, and it's interesting to see the distinctions for sure. It's great. So in our final couple minutes, I want to talk about your other Llewellyn book and give you a chance to talk about your previous release, which is called Container Magic, correct?
Yep, I got that right here.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what we would find there.
One of the reasons why I love container magic is that it's a simple, effective form of magic that can be used and done basically anywhere with anything you have on hand. Can the material hold things? Then it can be used as a form of container magic. You have container magic in myself, I've found works best for long-term ongoing projects, like constantly ensuring you have secure money, protecting the home. But there are also short-term containers that you can make and can be destroyed as part of the spell. And so depending on the time you have, what materials you have available, you can create some sort of physical container to work magic for you.
What's an example of give us an example of something you've created or that you would have us create.
One of the most common forms of magic is this right here.
Okay.
And this is a witch's jar.
All right.
And in this witch's jar, there's hair and personal effects. There's mirrors. You got cat claws and cat nails. You got pins and needles, wires, glitter, and other tiny small things. And the goal of that witch's jar is to trap any evil spirits, negativity, and ill will that is sent to you so that it can't come to your home, so that it can't hurt you. It is protection. And it is one of the oldest forms of protection magic there is. Archaeologists are still digging up witches' bottles in Europe today.
Amazing.
I mean, I think they just found one like 3 years ago that was from like the 1400s.
I mean, do you ever think back to people back then or even earlier on, how they knew to do some of these things? I mean, what was the instinct that led them to this?
A lot of it, and that's actually kind of something I do touch on my very first book, which was published by Sterling Ethos, which I think now is Unit something, is that by looking at the nature of a thing, you can tell how to work with a thing. Like sugar is sweet, so it's good for attracting things. It also, when you move sugar through your hands, it moves quickly, so it's good at bringing speed. Needles are sharp, so they're good for protecting. They'll attack, and they can be used for attack. They can also be used to defend by, piercing holes through things. Rose thorns are used in protection of love because thorns are spiky. So a lot of it was by looking at how things were used, and a lot of it was passed on from parent to child or grandparent to grandchild, word of mouth, and family tradition. They were just things that were done because that's what was done.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, really interesting to look at it. I love this. I mean, this is what I love about, specifically Llewellyn has so many different authors that really are keeping these ancient traditions alive. And what I'd like to observe, Charity, is that you've really taken traditions that existed, but pardon the pun, but it's almost like you've dug down deeper, right? To help us see a way to work with that element of earth in a much more specific way. And, I congratulate you on a fascinating book, always beautiful. Again, the title is Divine Dirt, and it's out now, right? Or is about to come out?
It'll be out in about 6 weeks.
Okay, well, we are
set for the release date.
Oh, fantastic. So we get a little preview right here and now. But of course, this show will be, whenever you discover this show, I'm sure there will be a way that you can get this book. And Charity, would you like to leave us with any parting words? We really appreciate you having, sharing with us as you have and joining us.
The biggest thing I would say is open up if you want to try to work magic and make a change in your life, open your mind to what you have available. You got pen and paper, you can use that to make a spell and write a change. Look in your kitchen, there's all kinds of materials in your kitchen that you can use. You find what's available and just go for it. Just give it a try. You don't lose anything by trying.
Oh, I love that. Thank you again, Charity. We look forward to talking to you again. Don't forget, we've got another book that you were expecting from you. You just birthed an idea of a new book right here on the show.
I got several, so you'll probably be hearing more from me over the years.
We look forward to it. Thank you again. We appreciate everybody listening, everyone. Again, I'm Bonnie Burkert for Truth Be Told Transformation on the Club Paranormal channel. Don't forget, you can join the community live with Tony Sweet on Fridays at 3 p.m. Pacific. And Robert Hensley has new episodes every Monday exploring all kinds of different subjects. We are here to offer a platform to people that are both appreciating the ancient ways as we move through these modern times. Thanks again for listening, sharing, liking, loving, and until the next time, shine on.